Addressing underperformance in your team as a manager is not just a task to do, it is critical to the success both of your team as a whole, but also for you as a manager and leader. But it can be tricky, can't it? And it can be quite daunting. In this video, I'm going to answer those key questions that you have on how to address underperformance, both effectively and with confidence. My name is Helen Bryant. I'm a leadership coach with over 20 years worth of corporate experience. And in those days, I managed underperformance many times. I'm going to help you address any underperformance that you may have in your team. I'm going to share with you how to prepare, what to say, and what to do should it all go horribly wrong, which hopefully it won't. The starting point when it comes to underperformance is recognizing what is the gap between your expectations and how that person is performing. And you need to be super clear on this gap. There is a watch out for managers right at the start. And that is when you delegate work and when you set objectives, it is really important that you are very clear and you spend time describing what a good job well done is. Not how to do it, but the outcomes. And the more you can do that and set that standard so it is really clear, it is easier to identify the gap when it starts to exist. If you're not clear what your expectations are and what the person thinks is expected of them can actually be two different things. So the starting point in managing performance well is that you set goals and objectives and delegate very well. And the second watch out for managers before you even get going is spotting when people are underperforming and doing something about it quickly. So the longer you leave it, the harder it can be to address. It's very important in how you manage your team that you give yourself good planning and thinking time. So you're thinking about your team's performance so you can identify those moments and then put a plan in action to deal with it. Because the quicker you do, the performance won't have slid too much, and as a consequence, it is much easier to address. Okay, so you've recognized there's a gap. What you need to do at that point is pull together the evidence that demonstrates that gap. It can't just be an instinctive thing. It needs to be very clear. A further benefit of spending time and getting clear on what the gap is and finding the evidence, it is going to give you so much more confidence when you get into the actual conversation. The next thing to do is to have an open and direct conversation with the person. There are 5 steps that you can use to guide the conversation. Step 1 is environment. You need to have this conversation in a quiet and private environment. Nobody wants to be overheard when they're being picked up on their performance. What you're doing is creating an environment of trust between you. So you want to create a safe space so that the person feels they can speak freely with you. You will have a much better conversation if you do that. For me personally, and also with many managers I've talked with when they've been dealing with these sort of situations, the start of the conversation is often the hardest part. It's that fight, flight, freeze sensation can take over because we know we are about to possibly have a difficult conversation. So you need to start well. And the simplest and easiest way to do that is to be very clear on what the purpose of the meeting is and speak clearly and directly about why you're there and what you want to happen. That could sound like, I want to discuss some observations I've made on your work recently. My goal is to understand what's happening and see how we can work together to improve things. Then you need to share the issue. And this is where you share the evidence that you've observed and make it very specific. So what would this sound like? I've noticed that several projects have been submitted after their deadline. For example, the marketing report was 2 days late, and the week before the analysis report was 3 days late. So you present your case. At this point, you want to stop talking yourself, and you're going to find out from them what they think of the situation. So that could be as simple as a question like, can you share with me from your perspective what has been happening? And then you want to stay quiet, don't interrupt, and listen to what they have to say. At this stage, it really pays to dig down and understand in more detail, using questions like, oh, tell me more about that, or why did that happen, or tell me about how you normally approach this task. What you're trying to do is put more meat on the bones and really understand the situation in more detail. Spend time just understanding their view and listening and thinking. Do not comment at this point. At this stage, normally you're starting to get a view and you'll be getting ideas in your head of things this person could do. But I want you to hold back. What I want you to do instead is check that you have really understood and that you're both on the same page. And you do that by summarizing what the person has said. So what you want to do is summarize back in a short form what you have heard and the issues that have been shared. And then you want to ask, have I understood that correctly? Now, this is a really valuable point of alignment between you. It is so much easier to create an action plan when you both see the world the same way. Then you want to work together to create an improvement plan. What you don't want to do is take it on yourself and give them the plan. The best thing to do once you've had that moment of alignment is ask what they think they need to do in order to improve the situation and what support do they require. Most times people know the answer. What you can then do is build on that answer and add more to it without taking the accountability away from them. And that's the whole point. You want to be empowering them to solve the challenge that they face. And the more likely, if they say it out loud as their own plan, they are so much more likely to do it rather than you telling them what you think they should do. By all means, build on their plan, share advice and ideas of things they could do, but only after you have understood what they think they should do themselves. By the end of this section, what you should have is a concrete plan, a clear roadmap that they need to follow to improve their performance and get back on track, and a clear understanding of what support you need to give them in order for that to happen. Now, from my experience, more than 90% of the time, if you follow these steps, you will end up at a place where you and your team member have had a good conversation, you've cleared the air, the expectations have been reset, there's a good understanding of the gap, and a plan has been put in place to address them. Very occasionally, that doesn't happen, and it will be a difficult conversation. But here are a few tips to help you navigate it. Now, normally, it's because there is a level of defensiveness that comes from the person you're talking with. It is really important that you keep calm and composed. If the person starts to be more assertive and aggressive and you match, you are very quickly going to be in an argument. So it is very important that you breathe and keep calm. And it takes effort, but it makes all the difference to diffusing the situation quickly. Next, you need to let the person have their say and listen with empathy. Even if you don't agree, just listen and acknowledge what they're feeling. But then once that has happened, you need to restate the importance of why you are having this conversation, which it isn't about blame or criticism. It is about improvement and support. There is a gap versus what is expected. You have shared the evidence of why that is so. And as a consequence, you need to help that person address that gap and say it clearly, say it directly, and keep focusing on the solution and reassure that you are doing this to help them and that they are a valued member of the team. Now, if it really kicks off, I would absolutely recommend taking a break, get out of the room, take a bit of time off, but really importantly, come back to the conversation and reset it. Will this feel uncomfortable? It most definitely will. Will you work your way through it? Yeah, you will. as long as you follow those steps and keep coming back to the evidence that you have and your willingness to find a solution and support them. But I promise you, this is by far the minority of discussions that I've ever had. By far the majority have been much more constructive affairs, even if the person was a bit surprised to be called out on their underperformance in the first place. If you follow the steps of the conversation, you will guide it into a constructive conversation. One of the things I was talking about was the difference in an underperformance being driven by skill or maybe attitude or something else. And this video here looks at the concept of skill and will in coaching, and it helps you with some communication strategies that may help you, particularly if it is an issue of attitude or motivation, or what we would call will. So if you think you'd find that useful, this is where to go next. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, pop them below. I'm around to answer them, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.